So yeah, my name is Ellen Carbo, and I'm honored today to be here. My goal with my presentation is to actually give you a little bit of an overview of how all these topics today are connected. So it means I don't actually get to go too much into specifics, but I do hope it will help you to kind of connect everything of the day together. Oh, there we go. My keynote title is to open the science. And I'm doing this on purpose because I feel like most of you would have heard about open science. And open science sounds very passive. You can open science, you cannot open science. I'm here to tell you that open science is a full sentence. Open is a verb, science is the noun, and it's an activity that we all do all the time. And we're going to give you different examples throughout the day of how you do this and how we are already doing this and how we could do it even better. So first, I need to know something about you all, because I'm going to talk about some of the basics, but I feel like there's people in this audience that know a lot about the basics. So score yourself between a 0 and a 10. A 0 means I know nothing about anything, and a 10 is I know everything about fair and open science. Raise your hand if you score yourself between a 0 and a 6. Good. I'm actually happy about that. Great. Score yourselves between a 7 and an 8. Raise your hand, or a 7 or 8. Okay, pretty good. You might have a roll today. Nice. Anyone scored themselves a 9? A 10? No? Too bad. Okay. So a little bit about me. I'm a molecular neurobiologist by training. I worked at the VU Medical Center. I got to work a lot with human material, human cells. So I also got to be present at open brain operations. I got to be present at a lot of consultations with patients. So I actually got to see a lot of different parts of the healthcare system and the research healthcare system. I did realize while I was doing this that being a full-time researcher wasn't for me, but I did want to be part of the research world. So I ended up working as a project leader for different big data projects for het RIVM, for het Zorginstituut, and now I'm working for ZonMw. And I really enjoy working for ZonMw because as a researcher, a lot of things about the funding system really frustrated me, kind of annoying. So I wanted to be part of the group that could change that. And I'm happy to say I actually got hired at ZonMw, and I am now part of the group to change that. So happy to be there. Question for you. Which bridge is this? Anyone from Groningen? You could just shout it if you know it. Yeah, Museumbrug. Thank you. So this is the museum bridge. It's the original museum bridge, because this was where the museum used to be. It's about like a 15-minute walk from here, I guess. And I wanted to start with the bridge, because obviously the topic of today is bridging things. So I did hope someone would recognize this bridge. So talking about bridging and the things that we want to bridge, obviously today is about academia. And it's about general healthcare. It's about actually helping patients, helping people with whatever researchers find. We have a big issue with this bridge because it's really not functioning. It takes about 17 years on average for evidence-based practices from research to change anything in general healthcare. 17 years. And that's for the things that actually do get implemented, because about 50% of all positive results from research that could change healthcare for the better never gets implemented. And these are horrible stats. Like, this is not why we're doing research. This is not why how we're trying to help people, right? There's a whole field that works on this. It's called implementation research. And it is kind of the bridge between the academia and the general healthcare. So if you haven't heard about implementation yet, or you haven't thought too much about implementation yet, maybe make it one of your key takeaways from today to kind of look into it, because there's a lot of interesting things happening there, and it would really help us all to bridge what's happening here. And I want to point out that it's a two-way bridge. We have a lot of people in academia that also work in healthcare. I definitely saw some overlap between the hands of researchers and people that see patients. Like, we're not two different sides of the bridges. There's actually people on both sides of the bridge that are pretty much in the middle of the bridge, I guess. And I do want to point out that you guys are very important, because you're seeing what's happening in general healthcare. You often come up with a research question and then you do something about it. So to kind of give you the roadmap of the way that at least I see this research process, I'll walk you through it. So here on the left, there's a person with a question. Could be a patient, could be a doctor, could be a researcher, anyone. When they start their research, or they want to start their research, they need to think about, for whom am I doing this research? Am I considering the right groups of people, the right patients, the right whatever? Am I taking everyone into account that I should take into account? And you have to think about, with whom am I doing this? Am I including patients? Am I including citizens? Am I including implementation experts that can help me, if I do find something really interesting, to make it go somewhere? And then, if a project is started, at some point during this project, you'll hopefully get some really cool output. Something that makes you go, you know what, I want to tell this to the world. Could be something really positive. Yes, I found an answer I was looking for. Could be, actually, I didn't find out I was looking for. The research went horrible. All my choices were bad choices. And please, no one ever do this because it doesn't work. It's a result too, something you would want to share. So that output, you want to be open. It needs to be open knowledge. It needs to be shareable with everyone so that no one makes either the same mistakes or has to do the same thing again. This open knowledge obviously should have some form of impact then, right? It should change something, somewhere. It can make impact by implementation or by training and changing something in someone's profession. So say, for instance, it changes a guideline or something out there. And then, say there's a new project. Someone saw this open knowledge and went, that's really interesting, but I would do it like this, or I have a next question, a follow-up. Would be great if they could use the data from the previous researcher. Like, we don't have to redo it, we can just build on top of each other. Saves a lot of effort, saves a lot of time, saves a lot of frustration. So, before I go more into the topic of fair data, I actually want to point out what I mean by open knowledge, because it's such a broad term, right? So open knowledge to me is much more than data. Actually, a lot of the times, I don't think the data from research is the most interesting, because a lot of people just see the data as like the final Excel file that has the names of the patients. It's not, obviously. I hope you guys are all like, no, that's horrible. But for a lot of people, it feels that way. But there's so much that gets created during research that we could share already and that'd be interesting for other people. For instance, the research code that you use to analyze, trainings that came out of your research. It could be a cool publication in a Dutch journal. Like something to help people understand what's happening. It could even be a website or an app. So I'm not just talking about data. And I do want to point out here as well that as a funder, if we ask people who got funding, hey, what are the results of your research? We often get a PDF. Just one PDF, we get an article. Quite often, as a former researcher, I know that that article is a compromise between you, your PI, the PhD students, the reviewers. A lot of people had opinions and you kind of came to the middle and now that's what's published. So great, you have an article, awesome, well done. Might not be the most interesting part of your research for others. So we're not just looking for what we previously called the final product, we're looking for all your products, so also the in-between product. And not just to hand it over to your funder, because I don't actually want it, I just want to know that it's public. So then to get more on the topic of fair data, there's actually 3 ways to define fair data, and I want to point all of them out shortly. So the first one is findable, accessible, interoperable, reusable. I hope you guys will know, it was in the intro of the conference, so I feel like you all read this. I do want to point out the A specifically. It's for accessible, which means, there's also a little lock on it, you could keep it closed. You could keep it open only for specific people, for people with a specific affiliation, a specific job at a university. So fair data, not the same as open data. Really important distinction. And then the second way to look at fair data is it fair with only the capital F? Is it biased? To give you an example, this is a little picture to show the way that different people can identify themselves. You don't just look at 2 groups of patients, right? Men and women. There's so many more ways that someone, a patient, a participant can be identified. And we know from history, and not even that long ago, that, for instance, research on cardiovascular diseases was done in white middle-aged men. Great for white middle-aged men, because we know what kind of symptoms you get before a heart attack. But for women, they've been misdiagnosed for a long time when they were having a heart attack, because the symptoms didn't match. So if we're talking about fair data, we're not just talking about the whole findable thing. It could be that your data is 100% fair, speaking about the left part, could be horribly biased. So we want you to do everything. Obviously, as far as possible. We do have occasionally a ZonMw that we get a project in, and it's just men that were included, and then it turns out it's prostate cancer research, which, fair. Like, we're not, we're not judging, so yeah. So whenever possible, obviously. There's a third way to look at the acronym FAIR, and it stands for Fully AI Ready. Vero already had a beautiful bridge to this. There is so much happening with AI at the moment. Who here, raise your hand, has ever used ChatGPT? Don't be shy. 100%, thank you. We know this is happening, right? We can't stop it. We don't really want to stop it. We do want to kind of control it a bit. If you go on YouTube at the moment, there's beautiful videos like research paper literature review, right, using ChatGPT. They'll just walk you through it, how you set the right prompts in ChatGPT to write a review paper for you. There's actually books that will help you write good research papers on ChatGPT. I'm not saying use it, but I'm saying it's out there, right? We know it's happening. And there are certain initiatives to kind of help control this. There's the European AI Act, and there's the European Health Data Space. I'm not going too much into these, but if you've noticed actually before as well, sometimes on the right top corner, you see a face. That's one of the other keynote speakers, and it means that they will go more into this in more detail. So in this case, Miriam and Irit will go more into the topic of European Health Data Space and the AI Act. So stick around. And then this is something we'll kind of refer to as well, but garbage in, garbage out. So much of the good data is not available right now on the internet, which means AIs are not being trained with it. What is the AI being trained on? I don't know. And it's terrifying because it's probably not good data. And if we put garbage into a model, we get garbage out of the model. So making sure that your data is fair also means deciding whether it's good for an AI to be trained on, and if you want to, make it accessible to AI. Also, within the accessible, you could say, this cannot be used to train AI. But you do have to define it, otherwise no one knows what's happening. So, seeing how much time I still have. Pretty well. I want to point something out about sharing your data, because whenever I bring up the topic of data, of AI, people kind of go, privacy. It's a very sensitive topic. There's multiple levels of sharing your data that I do want to show you. So first of all, I'm taking the example from a funder's perspective. If we give someone money to do research, this should be public, right? Like it should be findable for other people who got money to do what. So on our website or on your hospital's website, your university website, there'll be something like, this person got money to do this kind of research, and this is the main question. Great, public for everyone. Hopefully, by the end of the research, you'll have some form of an article. That article should be open access, should be public for everyone. But as I said before, these are not actually the most interesting parts of your research. What I think is often the most interesting part of research is the metadata. So metadata is the information about your data, about your research. So it's things like, why did you choose to only include men? How did you include your patients? When? Or maybe it's not patients, maybe it's test animals. What are the certain context? What is the context? What are the conditions that you did your research on, or that you controlled for? So all of these are really interesting for other people to know. Might even be more interesting than your actual data. For instance, what's also metadata is which variables are in your data set. You can share that with everyone. You can say which questionnaires you did. You can say how many patients you saw. All of that doesn't hurt any privacy laws. Where it does get interesting with privacy is below this line. So this is your actual data. If we're talking about fair data, and then I mean the acronym Findable, Accessible, Interoperable, Reusable, 90% of what fair data is about is above this line. It's the metadata. Because based on the metadata, other researchers will probably know, do I want to reuse that data? Is this interesting for follow-up research? Do I trust the results from this article? All of that is above the line. And then if people have been above the line and they think, this is actually really interesting, I would love to see this data, now we're talking about accessibility. And now we're talking about trying to figure out, is there an infrastructure? What's the infrastructure like? How do I share it with it still being anonymous? That's all below this question, but that's the last 10%. So if anyone talks about fairness of data, I want you to remember it's not open and it's mostly about metadata. Don't immediately stop and hit the brakes because of the last 10%. So to summarize a little bit, why open the science? Well, there's a lot of good reasons, but I put a couple here. First of all, most of the research is done with public money, should be publicly available. An acceleration for innovation, impact, and collaboration. If we can build upon each other, we don't have to keep reinventing the wheel. Better verification of research results. If you find different results than another researcher, but you think you did something similar, it'd be great to be able to look into the other's metadata or data. And a lot of times, it's not possible right now, and we have this crisis. Savings. As a funder, I'm excited about the savings for money, obviously. Because if I can save money by not having to pay for a thing to be done again, I can use that money to pay for new research. So I don't want to do things double. I don't want to pay for doing things double. It slows us all down. Also, if you can reuse a lot of the information, there's less pressure on patients. They don't have to do the same inquiry or the same questionnaire for both their doctor and their researcher, because we could just share it. And the last ones are about making it more applicable to everybody, and that good science is anchored in trust. And especially trust, actually, Robert is going to talk about it a bit more today during the day as well. But we keep hearing that trust in scientists is at an all-time low. It's not. There's actually really cool research being done. One article came out in Nature in January. They interviewed over 70,000 people in 68 different countries. There's really high trust in researchers. We're doing pretty well. Like the connection between general public and research, pretty good. What we're not doing too well with at the moment is the connection between politics and policy and researchers. But this is a different type of trust. So when talking about trust, think about what kind of trust we're talking about and who's trusting who. So I want to end with this slide on how to make change happen, because I hope that you guys are all kind of like, oh, you know, this open the science is actually really useful and it's all connected. Why are we not doing this yet? Great. We're not doing this, I think, as a general practice yet, because you do have to do quite a number of things for it. Sometimes it's just easier to not have to think about all these things. But if we do want to make a change, there's these 5 different ways we can think about making a change. And I love that you already did like a hands up for who's working on what, because I actually saw quite a number of you are working on different parts of this. So this is based on research from an implementation researcher called Brian Nosek. He came up with these 5 categories. If you want to change anything within your company, within a thinking system, these are the main things to think about. First of all, make something required. Sounds great, and as a funder, we're like, yes, let's make it required. But if it's not possible for the general audience, we're not going to make it required, because we'll be gatekeeping. So we're not doing that. But I do want to help make it so accessible to the general public that I can then make it a policy. If we get like 80, 90% of the general public, then we can make it a policy, and then the last 10% will come. So make it a policy. It could be hospital policy, it could be research policy, it could be your own personal policy, it could be one of your own personal values. Incentives, you make it rewarding. There's prizes out there. There's the Fair Data Prize for the best Fair Data project of the year. There's extra money you can get from us as funder if you say within your project you will work on this. Like there's all these both financial and other type of ways that you can get rewarded and acknowledged for this. Communities, well, there's actually quite a number of communities present today, and I think you guys are a massive community right now sitting here. But if a community makes this the norm, people will just do it. Skills and training, there's beautiful trainings out there and all different types of topics that you can follow along. They're all open sources. So go online, look at FAIR trainings, look at any type of training that you're interested in. It's out there. And the last one is infrastructure. Can I have hands again of people who said they were working on infrastructure? There we go. Lots of people work on infrastructure, which is great because we can do all the other 4 things, but if there's no infrastructure, then nothing's happening. Then people just hit a dead end. So yeah, want to end with this picture. It took me a while to find one of the bridge closed, but this is the museum bridge closed. I say that together, if we close the bridge, we can open the science. Thank you very much.
If we close the bridge, we can open the science.
Nice, right? Yeah.
When you were talking about this, I was thinking about my favorite movie, The Big Lebowski. A raise of hands, who has seen The Big Lebowski? It's about a hippie who's lost his rug. And he says, that rug really tied the room together. And your presentation really tied the symposium together, including beautiful pictures and... oh, it's really nice. We have time for some questions. I can imagine, based on this presentation, that there's all kinds of things that people want to...
Don't be scared.
Don't be scared. Oh yeah, over there. I'm going to throw. The first few throws mostly are not very good. I hope. Yeah, thank you.
Hi, this is a very practical question. I am a researcher, and I just wonder how I can share the metadata of my really experimental research. I work with animal models, so I'm just wondering how I can share that, if not the raw data that I produce in my research.
And I forgot to say, please state your name and your function, because every...
My name is Majerli, and I'm a PhD student at the University of Groningen.
Okay,
thank you. Did everyone hear the question? Yeah? Okay. I'll stand in front of the microphone again. I think it's a great question. If I had a really easy answer for you, I'd give it. I don't, because depending on what kind of research you're doing and what kind of metadata you have, there's different ways to share it. So my recommendation would be find your data steward. Find your expert within your field who knows about this. And there might be some data stewards in the room who are now like, oh no, she's going to come to me. Then what do I do? But this is the way that we can help each other. And this is the way the expertise should be. I'm also saying this because as an individual researcher, it's really hard to keep track of all the developments, right? There's so much happening. Even as a funder, we fund 70 different types of healthcare topics. All of them have different ways of doing this. Things like the EHDS, the European Health Data Space, is tying it all together again. So I don't have a really clear answer for you at the moment, but it is getting better. Like, it is getting more clear.
Yeah, enough. Thank you.
Yeah.
Please, yeah, throw it. Let's go. And I'm going to throw it up there to you. Please all state your name and function, and then your question.
Hello, I'm loud. My name is Abby. I'm working as a data steward at the University of Groningen Digital Competence Center. I think this is a very good illustration, this question and this answer, that this is just one question in this whole landscape, and researchers don't have time to look into all of these different options. Of course, we have support staff like myself and many other colleagues, but I'm wondering from a funder's perspective, I mean, you can say, do this and you'll get the Fair Data Award, but I mean, the amount of time and effort that would take the average researcher to really look into these details, explore different options, it's not possible in their job. I mean, many are doing research, many are seeing patients, many are teaching courses. I mean, so we're in this landscape and it's like, we'll reward you for this, but if you physically don't have time, I'm wondering, from a funder perspective, if there's anything being done recognizing this, and how could the funders play a role in relieving some of this
I would
toxic...
say funding for more data stewards. That's what we're...
Well, I think it's a great question, and you're right. Like, it is really difficult right now, because we are saying on the one hand, make your data fair, but then if you ask me, how do I do that? I'm like, great question. Talk to other people. So there is so much still being explored, but we're trying to do it by making change in all these different ways. So as ZonMw right now, we're not saying, hey, researcher, your data needs to be fair, because there's not an easy way to do it, right? For a lot of researchers, it's not possible. What we are doing is we're giving a lot of different grants in different topics that are specialized for making your data fair. So you can get a 200,000 grant from ZonMw specifically to make your data fair. And learned lessons from those researchers we're using to either give back to Health RI, give back to data stewards, talk to the thematic DCCs. So we're still in the process. We're not done yet. It's not clear cut, but I think we're all working on it, and that's part of why we're here today with this whole group of people.
Yeah.
Does that help?
Yeah,
it's a bit of a vague answer, but...
Yeah, no, thank you.
Okay.
Go for it. Yeah, beautiful throw. Okay, I have
I think
a question
to add to
from-
this, the discussion about fair data, I kind of compare it a little bit to world peace sometimes. We're saying like, oh, we want fair data, like we want world peace. It's not that easy, but we're working on parts of it.
Your name, your function, and your...
Jasper Stevens, Department of Clinical Pharmacy and Pharmacology. I'm also research coordinator. Perhaps a suggestion for the funding agencies. I mean, ZonMw has the obligation that the funding proposals are signed by a data steward.
Yep.
Perhaps it would also be an option that funding for a data steward might also be asked for during the grants, rather than
Working on
a
it.
separate grant for the...
Great point, working on it.
And
I
also
can,
advocate that towards other funding organizations, because that's something our department comes across quite often. There's a lot of things that we need to do, but there's no way that we can get funding for it within the research topic
Yeah.
itself. So we need to find all kind of loopholes to make this organizationally happen,
Yeah.
which is rather difficult.
No, yeah, it's a great question again. Definitely something I'm working on. I do have to point out that there's many different types of funders in the Netherlands. We are the biggest healthcare one, government funded, which means I need to keep the government rules. And one of the government rules is that I can't fund other things than researchers. So we have to talk to the Ministry of Health to change that, to make sure that we can get funding for data stewards and other experts that are necessary. Plus, an organization like the Cancer Research Foundation Netherlands is a private funder. And they have to follow different rules again. They don't have to follow the Ministry of Health rules. They have different rules. So we are in a fair funder work group. I work together with the Cancer Foundation, Health Holland, the Hartstichting, and Health Rise there as well, where we kind of try to make it happen as one group, even though we have to follow different rules. So this is something we're working on. And how to pay for a data steward is in there.
Yeah. One more question.
Yeah. Ulf Gunther from UMCG Groningen, intensivist and researcher. So what comes to my mind listening to you talk is I have a bunch of data that should go publicly, and I thought about the data steward. But so is there anything about legal issues that comes to your mind? For instance, if I give away my, say, Excel sheets anonymously, but send them to my data steward, would be the US. Is that possible? What do you think about legal affairs in this context?
I love this question. Again, it's quite a difficult one because it depends on what kind of data you have and what's in your data. Well, actually, I think multiple people this day are going to talk about legal issues of sharing your data.
Right.
So maybe I'll pause the question and I'll throw it to them. Would that be okay?
Yeah, thanks.
Perfect. Thank you.
Thank you so much. And for tying the symposium together in a really nice way. Can I have a round of applause for Ellen Carbo? We hebben nog een cadeautje voor haar.